AITA for calling my wife fat? I 34 am work in a physically demanding field. My coworkers and I are all fit, without much body type variety. My wife 32F is fat. She's always been fat, from when we dated to when we got married. She knows she's fat. She's fat and beautiful. I'm happy if she loses weight, and happy if she stays as she is. I think she's the most beautiful woman in the world as she is. One of my coworkers, Julia 28F, started complaining she's too fat to be loved. She said fat people don't get to be loved. Julia isn't fat. She's maybe 120 pounds, works out 5 times a week, and barely eats. I told her that wasn't true and that my wife was fat. Julia got red in the face and said I wasn't allowed to call my wife fat. She said I was insulting her and that my wife was beautiful and curvy. Carol doesn't like being called curvy. She thinks it's a label used to avoid calling people fat, as if it's a dirty word. I told Julia this. Julia threatened to tell my wife I called her fat. She pulled up Instagram and said she was messaging Carol that I was being mean. I beat her to it and called my wife. I put her on speaker and asked if she was curvy or fat. Carol laughed and said, I hate that curvy shit, fat and beautiful, baby. I thanked her, told her I loved her, and hung up. As soon as I hit end, Julia went mental. She started screaming I was abusing my wife. When I asked how, she said I was brainwashing her into accepting the term fat to keep her complacent. She said no woman in her right mind would be okay with their husband calling them fat. I showed her a picture of my wife in a shirt that said BBW. She bought it herself. Julia stormed off and hasn't spoken to me since. Today, I walked into an email from HR requesting a meeting. I don't think it's a big deal. I have my wife's blog for fat positivity, the shirt, and can call her for proof. But now, things are frigid at work, and Julia constantly gives me dirty looks and ignores me. So, AITA for calling my wife fat? Edit update: I met with HR at 4:00 today. Apparently, multiple coworkers who overheard the conversation stopped by HR to give their side. I wasn't in trouble, they just wanted my side. It checked out with what everyone else said. I don't know which of my crew stopped by, but I owe them my life. I offered to show my wife's blog, but our rep, a really nice girl, said it wasn't relevant if it didn't affect my work. The story was corroborated enough. HR reiterated what many of you said even though Julia initiated the conversation. I shouldn't have jumped in. It was more of a request to keep my nose out of other people's business. I'm sad because I thought Julia and I were friends. We talked about our mental health struggles and the hardships of our field. We won't have those conversations anymore. Julia and I will no longer be paired on teams for patient care. I was told my part in the investigation was done, and they thanked me for my time. I think I'll be okay. Before I left, I told HR that if weight loss body image wasn't supposed to be a topic of conversation, they should consider enforcing that. We have a weight loss challenge. I suggested making it a fitness challenge instead. She said they'd consider it. So, that's it. I wrapped up my treatments. Everything will hopefully shake out. I haven't spoken to Julia, and I hope to avoid her. Thank you all for the sanity check. Now, to quote Clue, I'm gonna go home and sleep with my wife.